welcome everybody. We are glad you are here today. I am Tracy Wainwright, the Christian writing coach, and I have a passion to see the market flooded with quality Christian, biblically based books. And I am super excited to have Yvette here with me today. Yvette's going to introduce herself in just a second, tell us a little bit about her body of work, and then we're going to dive into some questions that will hopefully help you on your writing journey. So, Yvette, thank you for being here, and please do introduce yourself to our audience.
Well, thank you so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Yvette Walker of Positively Joy Ministries and the Positively Joy podcast. I am an author. I've been professionally writing in journalism for years, a long time, but started writing nonfiction, Christian nonfiction, and even novels just within the last 5 years, maybe 6 years. The Lord put it on my heart to speak about joy. And that's where the name of the ministry comes from and the podcast and the idea that that we can only get joy from Him. And there's a lot more to say about that, but that is what I'd like to talk about. And I'm happy to see that other people are also talking about joy. I think it's a big topic. I think more people need to talk about it and understand it. And so my body of work includes a devotional and a companion guide, Whispering in His Ear, and the companion guide to that. I also have a journal. It was funny because I realized that I had been talking about joy, trying to help women understand and find joy, but I hadn't given them a tool to do it. So I created a journal about joy, to find joy, to be able to record it, to write down, what you see around you, to reflect on it. And that's journaling is in His joy. And that is a pretty traditional journal with prompts and scripture prompts, and also weekly prompts, and a monthly check-in to kind of see how you take your temperature, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And then I actually have a couple of novels. They have a Christian character. They feature a Christian heroine, Linda Radcliffe, but they're crime mysteries.
Nice.
And it features a journalist, which of course is my background. Now, I'm not Linda and she is not me, but there are some similarities.
Yeah, that's awesome. I love that. Yes, I tell people, they're like, "Do you ever put yourself in your books?" I'm like, "Yes, there's at least a little piece of me in every book, but I won't always tell you what piece that is." Um,
Exactly.
Sometimes
Exactly.
I
Well, they
will.
say write what you know, so
Yeah,
sometimes you
yeah.
have
I
to
have
do
a
that.
YA novel that's my main character dates a bull rider and actually dated a bull rider in high school. So I
Mm-hmm.
used a
Mm-hmm.
little bit of my experience for that. And I think that's what authentic writers do. I mean,
Yes.
the Lord uses our experiences to speak into other people's lives, whether it's in nonfiction or fiction. I mean, He related to people when He walked on this earth with stories. And so that's what makes stories so powerful in our writing, in our conversations. And, I think about every time, like, at this age, a bunch of moms get together and now our kids are starting to get married and have babies. And it seems always the birth stories, like we're still reliving them 20-ish, sometimes 30 years later, because that's what connects us. And so I love that your focus, and I imagine there's some joy in your mysteries as well. Um,
Yes. Yes, absolutely. Well, and trying to find that joy and
yeah.
understanding, where it really is.
Right.
And it's not a romance. There are romantic elements in it.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's a piece of that. And
Yeah.
then
I
also
love that. I'm going to have to check them out because I'm always looking for non-romance focused Christian books, and they're hard
okay.
to find.
Exactly. Well,
Yeah.
and so that is 60. Actually, it's a series. So 60 is the first book.
Okay.
Trial of the Heart is the second book, and then I am working on the third right now. And
Yeah.
it will finish up with the third book.
That's exciting. Very exciting.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of your characters and speaking of, we'll start with your fiction books. I
Mhm.
would love for you to share what you've learned in your writing journey about crafting captivating characters because we
Mm.
all know we want our reader to engage and connect with that character from page one and care about what happens to them in the story. So, what can you share with our audience about creating and crafting those characters?
Okay, well, thank you. I think that a good book is a mixture of structure and hooking the reader. But you're right, the character, they've got to care about the character. And
Mhm.
I'm sure you've either read a book or perhaps watched a movie or a TV show that had characters that you didn't like, that you didn't care about, that had no redeeming value. And there can be a character that's unlikable, but there can't be a character that has no redeeming value or boring or someone that you frankly just don't care about.
Yep.
That's nobody that you want to read, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and so I do think that the character has to have, humanity. It has to be relatable, even if they're doing something completely different than what you might be doing. So for example, I love Linda, and I love Linda for a couple of reasons. So she is a journalist.
Mhm.
There's, as I said, there's some, relatable information to me there. But she's incredibly flawed. She's divorced. She has had some man trouble. She's, trying to find that next partner. She's having issues with that. Um, and then she gets a phone call that takes her back 20 years to this story that she covered when she was a young reporter, and it was a serial killing.
Yeah.
And that affected her deeply in a way that she had to leave that place and move on to another newspaper. And
Wow.
so she's a, she had lots of merits for sure, but she's not perfect. And we're not perfect. And so that's one reason I like her. And sometimes she, makes some great decisions and sometimes not so good.
Yep, yep. I tell friends, like I have a couple that get previews, and I'll get these text messages like, "No, why would she do that?" And I'm like, "If you're screaming no at the character, I did my job."
That's right. Absolutely right. Yeah, yeah, no, I totally agree.
Yeah,
And then
I'm I'm hooked. I'm hooked
yes,
already.
that's good, good. And then the people around her. And it's funny. So I know that some authors say, I've heard authors talk about the characters talking to them or maybe doing things that they even didn't want them to do. And I can't say that that's been my experience exactly, but it is interesting that when you are creating this world of characters, obviously you're going to have one or two primary characters, right? But
Right.
then they're going to have friends and they're going to have people around them. And then sometimes you don't realize just how interesting the world has become. So, for example, in the second book, Trial of the Heart, we see some new characters. And I have found that I love these characters so much, I want to do a spinoff
Uh,
with just them because they're interesting. One's a lawyer, one is a former prisoner. They do develop their own personalities. Now, how does that happen? I mean, obviously, it comes from you.
right.
You're writing; it's going to come from you. But they develop their own characters, and I think you do have to just kind of let it go. Um, the writing process can be different for a lot of people. For me, I do I do just kind of wing it. I mean, I write and then I go back and edit. I'm not the kind of writer that will write one chapter and then go back and do a lot of heavy editing. I like to get it all out there first. And
Yeah.
I think for me, that allows the characters to have a little fun, to play in their playground,
Hmm.
which is the world that you're creating for them. And then just figuring out, okay, now let's go, once you go back to do the edit. And let me just say one thing really quickly.
Yeah.
Everyone needs an editor. Even an editor needs an editor. I
Yeah.
am an editor professionally. That's my
Yeah.
job. I am an editor
Yeah.
and I need an editor. So I just want to say that to everybody out there. Don't think that
Yeah.
even though you have reread it and proofed it and all that, trust me, everybody needs an editor.
I'll echo that. I'm a
Yeah.
professional editor too, and I go through the process of like my traditionally published books is me, then my editor, then me,
Mhm.
then my editor again, and then the line editor, and then me again. And
Yeah.
so, my sister caught a couple of typos, which we were like, okay, three in a 400-page book, but even
Hmm.
six people, we missed three things. So
Hmm.
I'll just echo that
Yes.
editing is equally, if not more important than the original writing,
Hmm.
because if you have a great story and the editing is poor and the typos or you miss a big plot hole, then you've lost your reader.
No, yes, I completely
Yeah,
agree.
yeah,
And sometimes when you are in the world of these characters and you're trying to create interesting things for them to do, sometimes you can get a little lost, or you can forget. Did
Yep.
I have them do this before? So I know many people use what's called a Bible, and I have my own, interesting. It's kind of, I don't really like calling it a story Bible because we
Right.
know what the Bible is, right?
Right.
But a document, let's just call
Hmm.
it that, a document
Hmm.
that explains who the characters are, what their
Yep.
backgrounds are.
Yep.
Because I had to go back. I knew in my heart that Linda was divorced, but I had to go back and make sure, did I include that? Yes, I did, because
Right.
that's one of the elements,
Right.
and her being divorced is important for me right now because, and we haven't talked about this yet, but that is a relatively new pivot that I've taken in my ministry to speak to women, Christian women of divorce.
Mm.
And so the fact, and I knew in my mind, I knew that she was, but I was like, okay, did I include that? And I had to go back and find it. So
Yep.
creating a document that explains your characters, that kind of helps you know, and helps the reader certainly know how they got from A to B.
Yep.
That allows you to go back and remind yourself, because like you say, a 400-page book, there's a lot of words in there. There's a
Yep.
lot of plot lines in there. A lot
Yep.
of things happen, and you have to remember what has happened. And so that also, I think, can help you with your characters to create them and make them authentic
Hmm.
and fully realized.
Yeah.
If you've forgotten, where they came from, or what you've said about them already previously in the book. And if you do another book, like for example, so I'm on Trial of the Heart, and when I was writing that, I had to go back to 60 to say, okay, wait a minute, did I do this?
Yeah.
And you would think, well, you wrote it, you should remember it. No, I have a full-time job.
Yep. Yep.
We all do, we may be moms, we may have lots
Yeah.
of different things that we do. We keep busy.
Well, and you
So
know
having a document like that can help.
yeah. I also say you don't know whether you actually wrote it or it was just in your head
Yes,
or if it was
yes.
part of your ideas. Was it idea you discarded? So I actually have a 9 book women's fiction series coming out right now. And let's see, book number 4 comes out this Friday. It's
Mhm.
9. And
Congratulations.
thank you. When I wrote the first book, it was my very first book that I wrote, my very first novel. And I never thought about taking notes. Like it wasn't even on my radar. And
Hmm.
by the time I'm in like book 5, 6, now I started taking notes along the way, but I'm like, I had to go back and reread book 1 because
Yeah.
didn't remember certain details that were all of a sudden pertinent in the later books. And so I have
Hmm.
learned, now I just do an Excel document. My 22-year-old just introduced me to a program and I don't remember the name of it, but you can actually bring in graphics and
Hmm.
pictures. So I have like my separate Excel spreadsheet and my Canva document where I keep
Yeah.
photos and houses and things like that. Is there a particular program that you prefer to use to help you keep track? Do you just do a Word document or do you have something else you use?
So I use Google Docs. So I use a
Okay.
Google Doc, and obviously you can search. It's searchable. That's very helpful. It has whatever document you have. It
Right.
needs to be searchable.
Yes.
I've used for publishing itself. I've used a couple different documents, Readsy, and another one, and some of those are searchable, but only within the chapter that you're in.
Right.
So you have to, and then you might be referring to Scrivener, perhaps, and there's some other ones.
Yeah, it's
Um,
another one. It's where you can build folders and chapters and you can
yeah.
have actual writing and then you can have your world building. So I'll have to she showed it to me just the other day because she's an
Hmm.
author as well. And I'm gonna have to write it down because we have a lot
Yeah.
of going on in our brains. So
Yeah. Yeah. And
that's
it certainly depends. I don't write historic, like for example, historical romance. I don't write that, but I
right.
can only imagine that those writers have, I mean, you've got to, number one, keep up with the facts, the factual information,
Yep.
how you are building the world within those facts because it is
Yeah.
historical. That's, yeah, I don't do
Yeah.
that. I
Yeah.
tip my hat to those who do, because I can only imagine how difficult that is. But you definitely have to have um, a system to
Right.
keep up with everything. And I would argue that you really, even with what I do, you need a system.
Yeah.
And I
And
think it makes it a little bit easy, once you do have that system, and once you have one that works for you,
yeah.
it makes it easier, and it gives you the opportunity, I think, to, as I said, to just make those characters fully realized.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And before we move on from characters, do you find, because it sounds like you're more of a by the seat of a pantser, they call it,
Oh, I'm definitely a pantser.
pantser and not a planner. Do you ever carve out time just to like brainstorm a character and develop them out, or do they just kind of develop as you go?
So yes and no. I would say I do, but probably in the more pantser style.
Hmm.
So sometimes I will just be thinking and or just in any kind of a situation. I have a notes file on my phone, and I will get some inspiration, and I will jot some things down. I have a writing group, a group of friends.
Nice.
We do a lot of writing and we do a lot of talking, which is fun. But sometimes we do prompts, and sometimes those prompts can turn into what might be a chapter, and
Oh,
I'll write that down, and I will finagle that. Oh, I could do this with Linda or whatever. But still,
yeah.
from a planner's point of view, that would not be considered planning at all. I
Right.
understand that.
Right.
But yeah,
Right.
but that's not me. And I think that that
Yeah.
is because of my journalism background. I'm so used to working on a deadline.
Yeah.
And even though, obviously we do some planning, it is more of seat of the pants. And that's just what I'm used to and what
Yeah.
I
And
enjoy.
I'll say if that works. I mean, that's another reason we were talking about before recording about just talking to different authors and getting
Hmm.
different perspectives because there's going to be somebody watching this who goes, "Oh my gosh, I could never do that. I have to, I have found for me, I'm kind of a seesawer." So I'll do like initial brainstorming and then I'm like, okay, I
Hmm.
have the general idea and then I'll just write and sometimes the story just writes itself. And then
Yeah.
middle of it, I might get stuck. So then I might have to go back to the brainstorming and the planning and fleshing out the rest of the story. And that may work for some people. Some people would be like, oh my gosh, how can you write a word without the whole story plotted? And then other people that would make them feel anxious if they felt like they had to sit down and plan everything out. So there's
Yeah.
somebody who's going to watch this, who's going to go, phew, I thought I was the only one who just sat
Yeah. Yeah.
and
And you
then
know what?
came
I'll
back
I'll
to it.
say this. I
Yeah,
think it is helpful to know where you want to finish.
right.
But I also think that that should not prevent you or maybe stall your creativity.
Mm,
Because frankly, you might decide, no, that's not actually the book's not going to end that way.
right,
Now, when it came to 60, the first book, had no clue. I knew where I was going to get to by the end of Trial of the Heart, but I still had to get there.
right.
And so the other piece that frankly doesn't exist anymore, but is how I really started, using my writing skills toward fiction is was National Novel Writing Month in November.
Right.
It is no longer around, unfortunately. They
Oh,
closed
I
it
didn't
back.
even notice because I'm
Yeah,
who has time to write in November? That's like the beginning of the holiday season. We start preparing like first week in November.
I know, I
Oh, I
know.
didn't know that was around anymore. Oh, that's sad.
It was, but it stopped. But
Yeah.
in my own way though, if I feel like okay, I really am working toward a deadline, I'm just going to take a month and I'm going to use it. So for those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month, it was every November. I've actually been doing it since off and on since 2006. Now
Not
those stories didn't necessarily get fully realized,
right.
but just think about this: you're writing a 50,000 word novella basically in 30 days. So
Mhm.
that's 1,633, I think it worked out to words a day to be able to achieve that. Now,
Yeah.
for you planners out there, that's probably nothing that you would be interested in. But for the pantsers like myself, I
Yeah.
mean, we just sit down and keep going, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
that may help you see, or understand me a little bit more. And
Hmm.
that's how I started writing fiction, through that, just through sitting down and trying to get, almost 1,700 words a day done.
That's great.
Um, and so, yeah.
Well, and like you said, you have your group. There are ways to build either online or if you are fortunate enough to find some Christian writers in your area to meet directly, where you can
Yeah.
even just have one or two accountability partners because we all know that it's the accountability that helps us put our behinds in the seats and
Yes.
say, okay, today is 1,633 words or whatever our personal goal is. So
Yeah.
but
Yes, absolutely.
that's fun.
And
That's how you started.
And if you can't find a Christian writers group, I mean, obviously you can have your small groups and your Bible study to
Yeah.
give you that encouragement and understanding. But I found even secular groups, because we're not talking, we're together in a coffee shop drinking coffee and writing,
Yeah.
and it's just the bodies being there
Yeah.
that help you have the accountability. So don't feel like, oh, I can't find a Christian writing group. No, there's writing groups. And, as long as they're not reading or writing about things that you're very uncomfortable with,
Right.
it's totally okay. I
Yeah.
believe you're
Yeah.
going to find your encouragement and your inspiration, in your church groups and in your small groups and things like that. Now, if you can find a Christian writing group, all the better. But
Yeah.
I would say, like, don't not do it just
Yes.
because you can't find one in
Yeah,
your
don't
area.
that let that be a limitation.
Yes.
I love that. I love that.
Yes.
So, well, great. Well, we're going to move from building characters to building platforms. So
Mm-hmm.
that's the big word I would say, and you probably know as a journalist for years. Um,
Yes.
short time, but having been writing for 20 years, a lot has changed on the online
Oh, so
world
much.
and the marketing world and traditional versus self-publishing. I mean, self-publishing was vanity publishing when I first began writing. And of course, Amazon KDP came in and just pretty much flipped the world on its head in the publishing world.
Mm-hmm.
So what suggestions or tips would you give today's new and burgeoning author on building your platform, even as they're writing their book?
Yeah. So if we're talking about fiction,
Hmm.
I do believe that there's KDP in particular, but there are other Ingram Spark and some other uh, platforms as well.
Right.
Really helps that indie writer, makes it relatively easy, lowers the entry bar. You
Hmm.
can get your information out there. You can upload a book. You can sell it. Now, obviously, they're going to take a chunk, and
Right.
they're going to get some information, some money back to you. You can decide if you want to go through Kindle Unlimited, which is a different kind of way, where you're making some coins based on the number of pages read in addition to actual books that you've read. So there's a lot of different things to do. But yeah, that bar, entry bar, is lower price wise too, because as you'll recall, the Vanity Press idea from a long time ago,
Hmm.
they charged you a lot of money to publish a book.
And when she says a lot of money, we're
A
talking
lot of money.
thousands and thousands. I think probably on the lower end would have been $7,000 to $8,000.
That's
Yeah.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. And now there's lots of reasons why you may want help. I guess I would call a pretty traditional indie public or indie writer, where I have published primarily on through KDP on Amazon. I do have my nonfiction devotional Whispering in His Ear wide, what they call it wide, which is where you're on Amazon and other platforms.
Right.
But for my fiction, it's primarily that. But I can certainly understand that there's reasons why people might want help. So there are legitimate companies, I wouldn't call them vanity presses,
Yeah.
that are Christian. And I'm not going to say any particular names today because there's quite a few. And I always encourage people to do your research.
Hmm.
And they are going to charge you. But for that, you're getting editing help. You're getting, if you're the kind of writer that needs a little bit more handholding or a little bit more help in fully realizing this book, then that might be the way to go for you. If you are a writer that you can pretty much start doing pen to paper and get going, you may not need that. There's still going to be some costs involved, even if you publish yourself. We just talked about editing. You're going to pay an editor. You're
Right.
going to pay a proofreader, and they may be the same person, but you're going to have an editor who's editing the copy, and then once it's quote unquote done, you want to give that another proof, right? And so you're going to pay for those services. Um, there may be other levels of services that you might want to pay for. So it's not like you're not going to pay something, But if you are able to, as an indie writer, do it yourself, the cheaper it's going to be, the lower cost level you're going to have.
Yeah.
But yeah, but there definitely are um, the what I would say former vanity press. I would not call these particular ones, because I think the idea of vanity press, that idea is that they didn't care about your project. They
Right.
just wanted your money, and they weren't really trying to help you.
Right.
So I think that's what would you say that's true of the traditional vanity press idea?
Absolutely.
Yeah, the companies that exist today that are Christian, again, do your research. Many of them really do care. They care about your message. They care about the message that the Lord gave you, and they want to help you. But again, they have to work, so they're going to charge you some money.
Yeah.
So there are some things to think about when you're deciding, how to publish. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And some things come and go. So we talked about NaNoWriMo coming and going, which is not a platform, but there was a platform that has come and is now gone, and that's Kindle Vella. So Kindle Vella was a platform on Amazon where you were able to write your stories, but in episode,
Right.
like they
Right.
called them
Yeah.
episodes. I would call them chapters, but they
Yeah.
called them episodes, right?
Yeah.
And so you were able to like write a little bit and publish it, write a little bit and publish it, and create a little bit of fun there, and oh, I can't wait till the next episode comes out, that type of thing, right? So lots of authors use Kindle Vella. I use Kindle Vella. um, 60 was up there, but once I finished the book, then you're able to take it down and publish it traditionally, or
Right.
not traditionally, but I mean through Amazon if you'd like. But there's a book of mine called Doe, Doe. It's about a woman named Doe. She's a former Marine. She's an EMT, and she's a healer, and she's Christian. And this book is a zombie apocalypse book that I'm in the middle of.
Okay.
So I wrote it for Kindle Vella. Kindle Vella decided to say bye bye
Mhm.
uh, earlier this year, I think. And so we all the authors, all of us, we got emails from Amazon going, Kindle Vella's going away. Here's your book. So they gave us all our stuff and said, do what. So what I'm doing right now is, as I'm finishing it, I am sharing some of the excerpts of the chapters with my email list and letting people kind of know about Doe in that way. But
Nice.
so sometimes a platform will change on you.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing. You only control what you own, right? And so that is why I know you talk about this, and so many people talk about having your own email list,
Mhm.
having your own information that you can manipulate and do what you want with. Because as long as you are using social media, which we don't own, or
Mhm.
even using a platform on Amazon, which we also don't own, we don't know what that's going to be like tomorrow.
Right.
Correct?
Yeah. And that's
So
a great
yeah.
reminder because I think people are becoming more and more aware of that and more
Mhm.
conscious of they may make it really easy and they may seem like, of course, the more books that sell, the more money Amazon makes as well. But
Mhm.
ultimately, if it's published on their platform, they own it. Just like if you go to a traditional publisher, they own that work. So
Yeah.
that's a
Yeah.
good thing for authors to keep in mind.
Absolutely. So
Yeah.
people might be saying, well, then why would I ever want to do anything but a traditional publisher? And you've done both.
Hmm.
At this point, I have not. I've only published independently. And I would say, yes, there's lots of reasons why I would like to be published traditionally. And there's a couple of projects I have in mind, and something might be happening, and I'll let you know when that happens.
Yeah.
Um, but there's a certain amount of control. Like some people like to really control their own platforms, control their own branding. That's something that you're not necessarily going to get when you work with a traditional publisher, but they also have way more resources than you as an individual can have. So I think
Yeah.
there's lots of good reasons to do both. And I think if you can be traditionally published,
Yeah.
obviously, as far as you're probably going to have a higher reach. Whether or not you get more money, I don't know. It depends on what your contract says, and
Right.
what they are taking and what you are getting. So it just like kind of all depends. But I would say this: I think everyone watching this is doing what they're doing because God gave them a message.
Mm-hmm.
And God is going to get that message to the place and to the people that he knows needs it. And so even if you are just beginning or you don't have a very large reach or audience, I would say don't be discouraged because he's given you a message. For me, the message is understanding joy. And now, especially speaking to women who are alone through separation or divorce, or and even potentially people who've lost their husbands and wives just because death is inevitable,
Mm-hmm.
and we may be feeling alone, and we may feel like we don't have any joy in our life, and we may be searching for something, searching for things that are actually not good. We're searching for joy, but we're searching for the wrong things.
Right.
And so the Lord has told me that you need to let people know what real joy is.
Yeah.
And so that is my message. So I'm gonna be obedient, and I'm gonna do that in various different ways. And I'm gonna rely on my good Father to help me get that message out there. And I'm gonna be smart and do the things that I think we should do, but I can't be too worried about things that I have no control over.
Right, right. And I think that I was listening to another podcast and they're like really pay attention to what your brand is. And you've been very clear about your brand is joy and not
Mm-hmm.
just seeking happiness in the things that the world offers, but joy through the Lord, which is the only true source of joy. And
Mm-hmm.
so when people are building their platform, and that can change over time. Like when you're new and starting out, you may pick a theme and then it may change over time because you just have your focus better or
Mm-hmm.
your work changes. And so, like something that keeps coming back, I've had around for a long time is words that transform
Mm-hmm.
because whether it's fiction or nonfiction or coaching or speaking or whatever I'm doing, the goal is to help you transform into the person that God made you to be and draw closer to Him. So definitely think about branding as you're building that author platform and yeah, the core message. So you can tie it into everything, even if your books are, I mean, I have, I don't know, 5 genres that I write in. And
Mm-hmm.
the core to all of that is words that transform and help draw us to the Lord and become the person He wants us to be. Believe it or not, we are coming on short order on time. And since we talked about, building our books and building our platforms, of course, every author wants to sell books. And so, lastly, I would like you to touch on maybe just your top 2 or 3 pieces of advice for when it comes to launching your book, whether it's your first book or your fifth book, and what
Mm-hmm.
you would tell other authors that you think is most important as you head into that part of the process.
Absolutely. So in this case, I would say do what I say and not what I do. Don't be a pantser when it comes to launching. And I will say that in the past, I have been a little bit of a pantser and not a planner when it comes to launching. Launching is very important. There's lots of things. You do want your books to be, if you are going to publish on KDP, you do want your books to be high in the Amazon rankings in whatever categories that you're in the first few days. Is it helpful to have a street team or a group of people who are helping you launch your book? Absolutely. And people who are dedicated and will really pump you up there and help you. There are some whether or not you want to buy ads, that's another thing. You have to decide if that's in your budget.
Mm.
But I would say definitely be a planner when it comes to that. There are a few different I think things that are platforms that can be helpful. One is called Fussy Librarian, and the other one, which I haven't used yet, but I've just been looking at, and you know what? I'm probably not going to find it right now. But Fussy
Of
Librarian
course.
is another one, and I'll let you know when I find it. I will say that these are platforms that allow you to promote your books, sometimes for free, and sometimes for low costs
Right.
on a certain day or two. You're going to pay a small amount of money, like maybe $50 or $60. But on that day, you're going to get a lot of people downloading your book. That can be part of a launch plan as well. As I said, Fussy Librarian is one. I will try and get you the
Yeah,
other name
that'd be
of
great.
it.
I wrote down just so I wouldn't forget the
Yes,
Fussy Librarian. And I've heard of it before, but I haven't
yes,
used it before. So
yeah.
that's a good
And
reminder.
it definitely helps even when it's free. If you offer a free book, Amazon has rankings of free books.
Hmm.
And so you can get very high in those rankings and still I think can make a difference in how the algorithm presents your books. Obviously, getting as many reviews quickly as you can, positive reviews, of course,
Yeah.
um, from people who have bought the book, preferably on Amazon if you're going to review on Amazon,
Yeah.
and people who like the book. So yeah, so there are definitely things. There are people that you can work with, that you can contract with to help you. There are book launching editors who help you do this. You know,
Hmm.
again, you have to decide what's in your budget and what you can afford to do and the time. If you have a little bit more time, then yes, you can do these things yourself. If you're still working that 9 to 5, you know, maybe you don't have as much time, and it would be a good investment to work with other people who care about the message and who care about helping you and be successful.
Yeah. Yeah. I love all of that. And I would just add sometimes you can find some of those people that help with that launching process will have like a free checklist, like a
Mm-hmm.
book launch checklist. So I know I kind of have a folder of marketing and book launch ideas, and every once in a while I have to go back and say, oh yeah, this is what I need to be doing on the next book. So
Yeah.
as authors, when I first dreamed of becoming a book author, I just wanted to write books. And then I had to learn about marketing and had to learn about book launches. And
Mm-hmm.
there can be a lot of fun in that. I have a friend who said, "Hey, can I host a book discussion for you for your new book?" I'm like, "Of course you can." And so I have that tomorrow night. Now, by the time this is published, it'll be a couple weeks in the rear, so hopefully I can report that it was a great fun time with just some
Yeah.
sitting around talking about my characters. But that's, just one of the many, many ideas that you can find out there. So Yvette, this has been so fun. I feel like we could talk for the rest of the day, but of
I
course,
know.
another appointment that's bumping up in the next 15 minutes. So I just really appreciate your time. We will have all of her links and her books included below. Look through the descriptions, connect with her, get her books. I know I will. I'm super excited. I'm kind of in between fiction books right now. I think I have 3 nonfiction I'm reading, but we won't get into that in my ADHD at the moment. So, but it's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on today.
I love being here. Thank you so much.
And we'll hopefully see you again. And until then, all you aspiring authors out there, happy writing. We'll see you soon.